So when it comes to CPU coolers, they've basically been the same for a very long time. There's been a new guy that's entered the chat, and I think it's one of those ones that you wish you knew before. Let me show you what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is this here. This is the Deepcool Assassin 4 VC. And the VC stands for vapor chamber. But the vapor chamber is not just the one that I think sells this. Look at the design of this. If you were looking for a pro art cooler, then this is a serious contender. And if you were looking at the NOCTUA coolers and you were thinking, I'm just gonna go with that one, perhaps hold on a second, because you might want this instead. There is no black and gold air coolers out there. And if you look at this one, it is absolutely amazing. This just really works. So this is the ProArt P401 case. This is a smaller version of the ProArt case. Imagine this now inside this PC case, just like that. How nice does this look? You can't see any fans in there because the front of this, there is no fan. The fans are in the middle and in the back, which makes the design of this very, very unique. By the way, if you do want to check it out, I'm going to leave the link in the description below, as well as this PC case. You might be wondering, what is this thing here? Because the VC, what does that stand for? This is called a vapor chamber, and this kind of changes the game a little bit, but I need to explain why this is important. And I've got the Assassin 4 here as well, just on the side. So when we're looking at these side by side, you can see that there is a little bit of a difference what's going on. So on the right side, I have the Assassin 4, which is the usual old-fashioned way how we've always cooled CPUs. You've got heat pipes, in this case 7, and then you've got a heat sink that the heat pipes kind of go onto. There are a few ways how people solve this problem, and I'll show you this now. This is the Arctic Freezer 36 Black. If I move this on the side for a second, underneath this nickel plate, so there's copper and then nickel plated, you can see there are heat pipes, which in essence will look like that. The heat pipes take the hot point on the CPU, and then they transfer it on this heatsink to the top part. It cools it down, and then the process kind of recycles that. But the thing is, these heat pipes don't make exact contact with the CPU, because as you can see, they're round. It's very hard to match roundness to a flat CPU. So what we have over here are heat pipes. They're round in there, as you can see. And then we're trying to cool down the CPU IHS, integrated heat spreader. So I've got a CPU here as well. So basically the CPU wants to connect over there because this is hot. We want to extract the heat from there. We'll get to that in a minute. Now, the problem with this case here is that because they are round, as you can see, they have shaved them off to make them somewhat flat. Because if we are taking this section here, can you see this bit here? All of this is not making a contact with the CPU. These tiny crevices there, we're just losing the actual contact with the CPU. So what they have done, they've shaved these heat pipes kind of off to make them flat. Then you get this type of contact here. But even at this point, there is tiny crevices in there, and we're not making ideal contact with the CPU. Now, does that matter? Well, that's where this comes in over here. As you can see, what we have here is a fully solid, smooth piece of cooler in there. And in essence, what they have done there is they have taken that and they've put the heat pipes inside. So as you can see here, we have it only on the top, but this is really for the mounting pressure to mount it there rather than actually spreading the heat, because that heat will just maintain in there. But in here, we have the heat that spreads it in here across all of these heat pipes in there, and then we get to the heatsink. The heat pipes are inside this heat spreader right over there, which means that when we put the CPU now onto here, as you can see, the contact between here is very, 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 very good. All we have to put a thin layer of thermal paste and we're getting it spread across, and all the heat will get transferred onto there. But the thing is, even at this point, this heatsink, all of this metal, the white, what you can see in this picture here, is not going to be conducting the heat as well as what we have in here. Now, vapor chamber, this is interesting. So now we have a CPU that will connect to a vapor chamber that connects to the heat pipes. So what you have there are heat pipes connected on the bottom in there. Let's remove this before installation. So as you can see, this is going to make contact with the CPU. And then this part all on the top there is vapor chamber. And vapor chamber transfers all the heat into all of these heat pipes, no matter where the hotspot of the CPU is. So if we're looking at it directly on the top, if CPU hotspot is right over there, these heat pipes won't really help much. Or if the CPU hotspot is somewhere over there, this heat spreader helps to spread it a little bit, the hotspot of the CPU, from there to maybe some of these heat pipes here as well. But this last heat pipe here is still kind of lonely. It's not going to do much or help in the process of it because it's still not as efficient on this copper block to get the heat spot from somewhere from the top there to the bottom here, if that makes sense. But this is where the vapor chamber comes in, because vapor chamber can transfer the heat spot very, very efficiently from any point, whether it's there, it just transfers it to the coolest spot. You might be wondering, well, isn't vapor chamber kind of like a heat pipe? Yes, but no. So if we are looking at a heat pipe on this side, then the way this works is if you've got hot in here and then cold on that side. So let's say we've got a CPU in there, and then it transfers the hot onto the heat pipe. The heat pipe has water basically inside. So in here, in this pot, the water, H2O, is very hot. It vaporizes, moves all the way to the top, and as there's heat sink attached to it on this side, and let's say we've got a fan in here that is blowing the air that way, what we're doing with the heat pipe is we're cooling it down. So now this hot spot over here, we're moving it all the way to the top. So the vapor moves all the way to the top, cools down, and what happens to this is the gas or the vapor of the H2O condenses, and then basically it moves back right down to the hot spot. And that's how the cooling works. It just circulates, and that's attached to the heat spot, and that's how it gets cooled down. But the problem is, on the heat pipe, the heat can only transfer one way. Just transfers there. It can't transfer that way. It just moves kind of from the hottest to the coldest point. Whereas here's where vapor chamber becomes very, very interesting. If we're looking at vapor chamber just from the side for a minute, then what happens here is here we have the heat source right on the bottom in there. And the vapor chamber just transfers all of that heat from wherever. Let's say if there is a very, 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 very hot spot of a CPU right over there, what the vapor chamber does is it's going to move that to wherever is cold. Let's say we've got the heat pipes attached to it on the top over there, and this spot here is very, very cold. On a heat pipe, we can't really move it like that. It would kind of move just up rather than anywhere that's cold. Whereas the vapor chamber takes it all and moves it to the hot spot and cold spot. It moves it very, very efficiently around. So if you're looking at it now from the top, if we've got a CPU hotspot over there, like if you've got a CCD on a Ryzen 7950X, 9950X that you're doing a lot of work on, and it's just hitting it over there, in this case, we'd kind of be hitting just these heat pipes over there. Whereas a vapor chamber, it can direct all of that heat and then cool it down right over there, and over there, and over there, and over there, and even over here. So all the heat pipes that are connected to this in here, they all get to work, and they work very, very efficiently. That's why this is amazing. And inside the vapor chamber, it works very, very similarly as on a heat pipe. You've got a spot where the water condenses, it takes to cool, and then it vaporizes, and then goes to the hottest point. But because of the wick design inside this vapor chamber, it can move any direction, forwards, backwards, upwards, so it can find the hottest and coldest spot, which means the heat gets spread very, very evenly. What you see is in your smartphones, iPhone 17 and so on, you don't have space for a heat pipe. Like, where are you going to put it? That's why you put a vapor chamber, because on your phone, you have a random shaped vapor chamber inside. And then now we can just spread the heat and get it away from that hotspot in there, right on the bottom. Use the actual physical design of the phone. But we haven't seen that on CPU coolers before, which is very, very interesting. And I think Deepcool could be onto something in here. But bear in mind, this is not a 3D vapor chamber. This is just heat pipes attached to a vapor chamber. So what I mean by that is you've got a vapor chamber here, and then the heat pipes are directly attached to it, just like that over there, where they've been kind of flattened, and then the heat gets transferred kind of upwards. So this is the side view, if that makes sense. But there's also some companies that are working on a 3D vapor chamber design, which means that you don't basically have this wall in here. So if we delete that one, what you have is vapor chamber, and it's directly attached to a heatsink, which means that any hotspot you could just move onto any of the heat pipes, directly on the heat pipes. You don't have the kind of top roof design, if that makes sense. But so far we haven't really seen that really in production or in action, but just so you know, that's that technology out in work in there. I guess you're wondering, how good is it? Well, let's mount it onto a CPU and then see how good it actually is. So while I'm undoing the cooler and installing the new one, here's a little segment of how to get Windows license for cheap. It's so annoying. I don't want to pay hundreds of dollars to just change my Windows wallpaper just because my Windows isn't licensed. Well, why don't you try Hookies? That's a ton cheaper. And if you use the code TN20, you get it even cheaper. What do you mean? How do I get it and how is it possible? Well, see this video here, or the one you're watching. Click in the link on the video description, add the Windows 11 CD product to the cart, proceed to checkout, add the code TN20 for the extra discount. So what, the Windows 11 Pro OEM key is just $23.22? Yeah. Choose the preferred payment option and complete the purchase. The key will be available on the purchased orders in a few moments. Copy the key and paste it into your Windows activation settings, and you're all done. Well, that was easy. Is that Ryan Gosling? No. Anyway, by the way, the same discount code also works website-wide, so go check out other products, maybe like Microsoft Office. So the cooler is installed and the installation process was quite simple, really. It's quite interesting. So you've got a fan in the middle, you're gonna have to take it out and then mount it in and then you put it down. Interesting, you get this rubber kind of just looks like a rubber that you raise stuff in school. But I think that's how you spread the actual thermal paste, but feels like quite a lot of material just to give you a little spatula to, you know, spread the thermal paste on there. So I've got their included thermal paste installed. There's a small switch on the cooler, kind of 2 squares and 4 squares. It's quiet or performance mode. Obviously, I've got it on performance mode to check what we're on. So we are on an Intel Core Ultra 9 platform. This is 285K. I've got it on the unleashed mode on the Gigabyte Aero DZ890 motherboard. So we're just gonna see how much it's able to pull the power and if it's actually gonna, you know, able to maintain this. Let's have a look how the heat spreader really works. So we've got a multi-core CPU. Let's take a look in here. As you can see, PL1 and PL2 power limits completely open. What are we pulling right now? 256 watts. It looks like it's thermally throttling right now. Oh no, it's package ring thermally throttling. So we're not actually core thermal throttling. So we're pulling 270 watts and roughly our CPU package is 83 degrees, core temperatures 75 degrees on maximum. This is pretty impressive, to be honest. On the packet here, it says 280 watts plus recommended. Right now we are 271. The fan speed is not even loud. I can definitely hear it, but it's not something that I would be seriously concerned about. Okay, 2245 points. That, my friends, is really, really good. I've got no problem with this. And bear in mind, this is seriously throttling this in a really, really bad way. Let's try one more time, second run now. When we've heated up, Bear in mind, it's 23.5 degrees in this room right now. Interestingly, I'm not exactly sure what the difference here is. So there is a package ring thermal throttling and then core thermal throttling. So the package basically means that some part of the CPU has had high temperatures, not the cores. So I don't know, maybe there's some other parts of the CPU that are tripped the thermal sensor, which right now it's showing thermally throttling, but at the same time, we're pulling 270 watts. None of the cores are even close to the DJ Max. Look at that. The maximum we've hit on the cores is 88 degrees. Bear in mind, that's nowhere near the actual limit, which is interesting. So some other part of the CPU, I don't know where the sensors may be being placed on there, but it's doing a great job, pulling 270, 282, something like that watts, and it's keeping it cool really, really well. I mean, look at that. Even the CPU package temperature maximum has been 89 degrees. We've maybe hit 90 degrees. I don't know why it's doing this thermal throttling here right now. But the same score, 2,245, which is really good. Now, I want to end with this. Why do I think this might be better than something that NOCTUA has? Maybe not perhaps better in terms of performance, because I think the NOCTUA NSG15 G2 will still be better than this one in pure power. But look at this cooler. And I believe this is slightly cheaper than the NOCTUA one, but if the CPU is not throttled by its performance, bear in mind, I'm running this out of factory specs more than it's supposed to be pulling. The max should be 253 watts, just bear that in mind. We're pulling extra 30 watts, which it can keep under control and do even more. If you underclock this, you'd be even, more performance out there. So the cooler is impressive, the cooling performance is impressive, but the looks are the ones that really sell it to me. Because why should I get something that has brown fans? And believe me, I'm a big fan of NOCTUA. I love it. NOCTUA does fantastic things, but this, I think, in terms of design and minimalistic approach for the ProWAD theme is a much better option. If you want to pick any of these parts up, I'm going to leave the link in the description below. As always, thank you very much, guys, for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye.